Hey, everybody. You are about to hear a brief retelling of the movie with no hard feelings. Enjoy the movie. When Maddie discovers her ex-husband Gary using his tow truck to remove her automobile from her Montauk, New York home, she quickly leaves. It turns out that the reason the car is being seized is that she owes property taxes on the house her mother inherited, and her only sources of income are from driving for Uber and serving drinks. There are even less opportunities to pay off the debt without the automobile. Although Maddie ghosted Gary, which infuriates him, Maddie continues to make flirtatious remarks to him and claims to have been thinking about him for some time. Gary seemed to believe her at first, but then Maddie's late-night visitor also leaves the house. Maddie attempts to act like he's a relative, but as soon as he starts showing affection, Gary takes the car and drives off. Maddie's only option now is to rollerblade to work. While Gary is inside a store purchasing groceries, she notices his tow vehicle parked close while traveling there. She seizes the opportunity to unhook her car from the truck and attempts to drive off, only to leave the additional hook behind and end up trapped there for Gary to witness. He lifts the hook and phones the cops when he gets out. Shortly after, Maddie receives a friend's bail and heads straight to work. A man tries to get a drink at the bar a few minutes before it officially opens, and Maddie gets into a heated argument with him, to the point that the manager reprimands her and tells her to go do something else. Maddie shouts at her pregnant pal Sarah and her husband Jim while folding napkins. Sarah stumbles into an odd Craigslist ad at that same moment. Two helicopter parents are searching for a lady in her early 20s to date their shy 19-year-old son for the whole summer in exchange for a Buick Regal. Maddie chooses to apply despite being older. The following day, Maddie rollerblades to the family's home, which requires more work because she needs to navigate a flight of stairs and an elevated road. After a few standard inquiries, the Beckers decide not to hire Maddie because of her age of 32. But Maddie swiftly invents a speech, claiming that the reason the advertisement is still up is because all the previous young girls let them down and that they should be looking for someone old enough to help their son experience dating and help him grow up to be a respectable man. The Beckers, who are fond of the concept, clarify that their son Percy, 19, is an introvert, that is, a socially awkward person who only interacts with others online. He abstains from smoking, drinking, and attending parties. Before he leaves for Princeton, his parents want him to have fun, get dating experience, and boost his confidence. They are concerned that he is losing out on the adolescent experience. After Maddie accepts the position, her parents encourage her to keep things natural so Percy won't know the truth and that it will boost his self-esteem. Maddie dons an alluring outfit and shows up at the animal shelter Percy helps at after taking Jim's old van. She expressly requests for his assistance while acting as though she wants to adopt a puppy. While Maddie continues to flirt and use a lot of innuendo, Percy shows her a puppy named Milo. Then, in order to continue flirting, Maddie needs to move a little couch to the desk when they go to the office to finish her application. Because the couch is too low, she doesn't make a good impression. Percy feels uneasy as she persists in her flirtation while he asks her questions. He makes the hasty decision to stop the interview, but Maddie needs a reason to speak with him and, as she is aware of his address, offers to give him a ride home. Maddie corrects Percy when he asks how she knew that, claiming that it was on his bag. Crispin, one of Percy's co-workers, arrives at that point to check what's happening, and Percy seizes the opportunity to announce his early departure. When Maddie sees him going outside and picks up his bike, she offers to take him out once again and places the bike in the back of the van as evidence that he is unable to refuse. Once they're driving, Maddie makes a joke about Percy being her prisoner and does her best to have a proper discussion. Percy is starting to feel a bit afraid because of this and the eerie objects in the van's back. Percy tries to use his phone to seek for assistance when Maddie chooses a different path, but Maddie steals it from him. Shortly after, they reach Maddie's house, and Percy hurls paper spray in her eyes, believing she has actually abducted him. Maddie, sobbing in agony, says she was only trying to score with him because she finds him so attractive. Unbelievably, Percy apologizes and helps her clean her eyes with a hose before they decide to get together again tomorrow on a real date. The next evening, when Maddie is waiting at a bar, Percy arrives dressed for the heat in a suit and short pants. When the waitress asks for their order, Percy tries to request a Coke, but Maddie switches it out for a drink, teaching him a small life lesson in the process. When their drinks arrive, Maddie needs to make Percy drink more in order for him to develop his alcohol tolerance before starting college because he spits them out the moment he takes a sip. She attempts to carry on the discussion once again, but Percy is a bashful and uncomfortable person. One of Maddie's ex-boyfriends interrupts them abruptly, boasting about how married he is and making fun of Maddie for having ghosted him. Maddie responds to him with some well-placed jabs, forcing him to leave. Following that, Maddie and Percy stroll down the shore. A disagreement breaks out when Maddie invites Percy to go skinny swimming with him, but Percy declines. Maddie begins to strip gradually to divert his attention before plunging into the pool. Percy quickly follows her since he doesn't want to be left behind, and Maddie envelopes him in her arms in an attempt to lighten the situation. Abruptly, some inebriated teens show up on the beach, making fun of them and then robbing them of their clothing. When the teenagers ignore Maddie's cries, she emerges from the lake nude and begins hitting them and flinging sand in their faces. When the teenagers defend themselves, Maddie is kicked in her sensitive spot, but she bounces back fast and gives the guy a scary body slam to scare the gang away. When Maddie returns to Percy, he expresses disapproval of her use of violence. This infuriates Maddie, who argues that Percy needs to learn how to defend himself and that Maddie used violence in self-defense. She attempts to engage in conversation with him as well, but Percy says he can't with unfamiliar people. Especially since this is his first time, he has to establish a relationship initially. Maddie, who is angry and irritated, gets out of the water, gets dressed, and gets into the car, taking Percy's belongings with her. Following her is a nude Percy who demands his clothing and phone back. Maddie only gives him his clothes before backing off. Maddie doesn't care that a naked Percy is jumping on the hood of her car out of desperation and repeatedly begs for his phone. She just drives on with Percy on the hood. When they go to the road, Maddie worries that she could lose her license since the police see their antics. She takes a chance and drives past the approaching train in an attempt to escape the cops. Later, after visiting Maddie's residence, the two start dancing for Percy. Percy ends up kicking Maddie since he doesn't know how to whack her behind. Then Maddie tries to dance on his lap, but Percy objects to the weight on his leg. As a result, Maddie moves Percy to her lap and rocks him like a baby. Then, when Maddie asks him once again whether he's ready to get down to business, Percy starts to become itchy as he explains that he wants to but is too afraid due to his inexperience. When Maddie lifts his top, she sees that he has a rash from his worry, but she doesn't pass judgment since she gets him some cream right away. Comforted, Percy shares that he hates being socially inept because he's only ever made pals virtually or through his old nanny. In answer, Maddie informs him that she has resided in this house her whole life in order to care for her ailing mother. Her mother had merely been a passing relationship, and her father had a family in the city, so he wasn't present. They decide to begin dating before having an intimate after having such a wonderful experience together. Over the course of the following several days, Maddie and Percy get to spend a lot of time together. They play laser tag, go on walks with Milo and other dogs from the shelter, win plenty of prizes at the arcade, and taunt a child until they are chased out. Together, they have a great time, and Percy starts to feel more at ease with Maddie. He used his tickets to buy her a beer hat at the arcade and to obtain a finger trap, which he fools her into using on him. Maddie loses it, but Percy calms him down and shows him how to handle it. As they get to know one another better through conversation, they discover things like the fact that neither of them attended prom. Additionally, Maddie shares with him a letter she previously sent to her father inquiring as to why he refused to see her. The letter was returned unread. It's this exposed moment that gives Percy the confidence to finally kiss Maddie. Following that, they go for a stroll and run across Jody, Percy's previous nanny, who is a middle-aged man. When Jody sees that they have a frisbee from the arcade, she throws it for Percy to go get. After Percy has gotten away from them, Jody accuses Maddie of seeking the family's money and wonders what her goals are with Percy. After declaring that she only wants to date Percy, Maddie suggests that Jody shares her desire, which silences him. Jody and Maddie pretend to get along for Percy's sake when he arrives. A while later, Maddie discovers a man she doesn't recognize when she hears someone ring the bell at her residence. It turns out that they attended the same school, and although Maddie hardly recalls him, the guy acts as though they were really close. As soon as the truth is revealed, Maddie pushes the man out of the house despite his threats to sue her. The guy is there for the house, but Maddie still won't give it up. In order to have their own prom, Percy picks Maddie up in a limousine later that evening so they may attend a formal dinner. They even trade flowers in the vehicle. They enjoy themselves talking and laughing once they get to the restaurant. Maddie consoles Percy by telling them that they should realize how amazing he truly is. Percy explains that he didn't want anybody at school to recognize him because if they didn't, then they couldn't make fun of him. After that, Maddie spots a piano and persuades a very trembling Percy to play it. He chooses to pay homage to Maddie by singing She's a Man-Eater by Hall & Oates, and it turns out that he is really excellent at it. He returns to the table to an enthusiastic cheer from the patrons, who are enthralled by his gift, Maddie telling him over and over again. Their conversation is abruptly cut off by Natalie, a relative who is also a Princeton student. When Natalie and Percy strike up a casual conversation, Maddie becomes envious and frequently tries to persuade Natalie to leave. When that fails, Natalie extends an invitation to Percy to a reception for prospective Princeton students. When Maddie attempts to say no, Percy assures her that he will remember it. Following Natalie's departure, Percy brings up his college plans and the possibility of seeing each other on the weekends. However, Maddie clarifies that she doesn't do long-distance relationships. She sees this as a transient summer romance that will end when Percy departs. Hurt, Percy storms out, and Maddie follows him right away into the limousine. But they sit awkwardly apart, and Percy starts drinking, which is a first for him. They're heading in an odd way, and Maddie sees it abruptly. Percy says they're heading to Natalie's party. Maddie was the one who advised him to spend more time with his schoolmates, therefore she shouldn't go if she doesn't want to. With his flower in the way, Percy dashes into the celebration as the limousine comes to a stop. Maddie follows him inside after giving it some thought, only to become lost amid the throng. Maddie begins asking around about Percy, but every child criticizes her for being an adult attempting to blend in with the teenagers, and if she answers badly, they threaten to videotape her and post it on social media. Eventually, she finds out from two females that Percy and Natalie went to a room. Maddie, frustrated that the younger generation wasn't doing the hard work, runs upstairs to investigate every room out of concern that Percy could be seeing someone else for the first time. When she finally comes to a closed room, she runs and pushes her entire body against the door in an attempt to break it down because no one replies when she knocks. Natalie claims that nothing occurred since Percy is intoxicated, even though he admits to stealing. Percy and Natalie are together and partially nude. As soon as possible, Maddie drags Percy to the toilet and makes him puke up everything. Fortunately, he had just taken medication for his hangover and nothing illicit. The host of the party shows up at that very time with his parents, and they start arguing with Maddie for being an adult at a party for teenagers. In an attempt to strike the father because he won't allow anybody to make fun of Maddie, Percy misses and hits Maddie in the neck. After the celebration, the pair head to the limo, where Percy puts his head on Maddie's lap to comfort him and apologizes for hitting her by accident. Then he says he's prepared for her and pulls out a few barriers, but then he abruptly declares his love for her as Maddie shows him how to unlock it. Maddie notices that Percy is inebriated and suggests that they should not go out tonight. Percy acknowledges her observation and returns to placing his head on her lap for the duration of the journey. The following morning, Percy is so happy to wake up that his parents can't help but remark on it. Percy's parents are overjoyed to see him breaking out of his shell, and he says he finally wants to acquire his own driver's license so he can take his fiancée around. But when Percy tells them he wants to stay in Montauk with Maddie instead of attending Princeton, the euphoria vanishes right away. When Percy leaves, the Beckers instruct him to wait for them in the car. They then phone Maddie, who tells them she wants to back out of the agreement since Percy is becoming too attached. The parents concur and inform her that even if she was successful in pulling Percy out of his shell, she still gets the automobile. Her final task before they call it quits is to persuade him to enroll at Princeton. Maddie says yes, but when Percy messes around with the phone in the car, he unintentionally connects to the end of the discussion. When he realizes that Maddie was merely paid to be with him, his heart bleeds. After giving it some thought, Percy asks Maddie to lunch without telling his parents, and when Maddie arrives at their door, the Beckers are taken aback. Maddie and the Beckers do their best to comply with Percy's attempts to force a conversation between his parents and Maddie over the lunch in the hopes of learning their secret. Unexpectedly, Percy receives a call, so he heads outside to meet Crispin, who assists him in destroying the Buick. Despite the fact that the automobile is rather strong, Percy decides to drive it into the forest in order to smash it into a tree rather than even trying to strike it with a rock. The work is completed when the tree topples over the automobile. Maddie follows Percy to his room after he gets back to the house to see how he's doing. Instead of trying to kiss her, Percy attempts to pull the truth out of Maddie, who refuses him with the justification that his parents could hear them. In an attempt to divert his attention, Maddie continues to lie and agrees to do something with him, but Percy stops understanding her in seconds. Later, Percy acknowledges that he was aware of Maddie's arrangement with his parents. When he rejects Maddie's apologies and claims it was genuine for her, Maddie becomes irate. She says that Percy would never comprehend what impoverished people go through in order to exist, to which he replies that she is wasting her life waiting for her father to make amends. This makes her angry and drives her out of the home. Later on, Percy goes up to his parents and begs them to stop supporting him and give him the freedom to fail or succeed on his own. He finds the breakup difficult, though, and reverts to his introverted ways of spending his time in his room playing video games. Maddie continues to get the damaged automobile in the interim, and she starts driving it for Uber. Even though her arrival often makes her clients nervous, she forces them into the car. In the end, Maddie saves up enough cash by driving and working hard at the bar to pay off her obligations. She heads out to celebrate with Sarah and Jim, who are announcing some exciting news of their own. They are selling their Montauk home and going to Florida. Although Maddie appears to be uncomfortable here, Sarah tells her that she is even more startled that Maddie is staying. Maddie is shocked that they are going. Maddie brings a guy home to show that she's genuinely doing okay, but then she finds herself attempting to get to know him better rather than acting flirtatious because she wants to connect. When the guy discovers Percy's finger trap and tries to use it on Maddie, he uses his banana instead of his finger, and Maddie tosses him out. When Maddie discovers the note the next morning, she knows it's time to let go. After fixing the automobile, burning the letter, and giving Gary a hug of apology, she decides to sell her house, but there's a catch. Maddie also wants to apologize to Percy, but he doesn't return her calls, so she starts searching everywhere for him. Although Percy's parents inform her that he would be attending the Princeton mixer, Jody and Crispin are upset with her and won't assist her. There, Maddie apologizes and says that their relationship was genuine. When Percy rejects her and attempts to go away, Maddie leaps onto the bonnet of his car. Drawn by her previous antics, Percy starts driving about with Maddie still on the hood, running into many objects along the way and unintentionally igniting Maddie's jacket on fire. Fearing for her safety, Percy panics and plunges the car into the ocean to extinguish the fire before getting out to assist her. Maddie seizes the opportunity to confess to Percy, who sobs in response to his forgiveness. Staying on the beach, the couple discusses their future plans. Maddie is heading to California, while Percy will actually be attending Princeton. They then decide to remain pals. After a while, Maddie does sell her house, but in a way that benefits Sarah and Jim, allowing them to stay put and raise their kid. As Percy leaves the house after saying goodbye to his parents, Maddie offers to drive him to Princeton while she travels to California. The three of them come together in the automobile to begin a new life after she also discloses that she has adopted Milo.